Hello all and welcome to the Business Continues virtual podcast. My name is Connor Slasberg and today we're hoping to put the doom and gloom away and focus on some of the positives within our lives and businesses. On this week's Roundtable, I am joined by Connor, Matt and Martin. Thank you very much for joining me, gents. This week is all about financial management, but before we start, it would be great to hear a little from each of you about who you are, what you do, and an old networking cliche, I would love to know what your first car was. So we'll start with Martin, if that's all right.
Yeah, no problem. My name is Martin, Kilby Fox. I'm an accountant. My first car was a Renault Clio. I got proper done over with it. I have no idea about cars, and they proper fleeced me. I think the exhaust completely broke after about 2 weeks. But never mind.
What colour were we talking?
It was blue. I don't even know how to describe it. Nice blue.
Nice, thank you very much. Matt, we'll go to you next, if that's all right.
Hi, I'm Matt Usher, Empire Corporate Finance. I'm an independent commercial finance broker. And my first car was a deepish, sort of rusty red mini Metro. It was URD 182Y, sadly, I remember.
Brilliant, thank you. And Connor, we'll finish with you there.
Good morning. My name's Conor O'Sullivan. I'm a chartered financial planner, fellow of the Personal Finance Society. I do a number of things. So I run my own financial planning business called O'Sullivan Financial Planning, where I help individuals and business owners make informed decisions about their future finances. Secondly, I supervise a great team of independent financial advisors across the country who really look after them from a compliance and risk point of view, make sure they remain compliant. I'm about to launch a financial wellbeing business where we help individuals understand better their money and therefore improve their mental health. And I also hold a non-executive director position in my spare time. So I'm the first car. It was 1987 Ford Escort 1.6 GL, license plate E506 FLY, because I was pretty fly for a white guy. I can't believe I just said that. It cost about £495, and the salesman saw me coming because it probably wasn't worth that. About 6 months before that, my parents moved to Ireland, and so I took the car about a month after I got it, drove to Ireland, which is probably about 5 to 6 hour drive to Holyhead, and then about 5-6 hours the other side, west coast of Ireland. And I had no car radio. So that was a really long journey. So when I was in Ireland, I bought a Sony car stereo. And there was a long running joke that it was probably worth more than the car. It didn't cost more than the car, but it probably was worth more than the car. But it did actually last me, I think, 3 cars after that as well. So that's my first car.
Works. My first car was a Vauxhall Corsa GLS, and my only memory of it was that I got it. The first couple of days I had it, obviously I was all excited, telling everyone, "Yeah, I drive now, big deal." And I arranged a date, and I spilled a latte in it 2 days before, and that car, the first time I had a female on it, did not smell pleasant at all. It just smelled of mouldy milk. That's always stuck with me, and I've never drank a hot coffee in a car since, but there we go. Hello. So we are talking today about financial management. Whether it's personal or business, everyone has concerns around money at this moment in time. This week's episode puts finance under a microscope, with some insight into potential trends and future planning, and hopefully some helpful hints and tips from our guests. So on this topic, I wanted to start with yourself, Martin. Obviously, you'll have been dealing with a lot of customers at the moment who have concerns around, both short-term and long-term finance. What are the challenges that you've seen? How have you been helping people in this time?
I think when it all kicked off, the main question was what can I get? What am I entitled to? So I spent a lot of the early days researching all the support that was available at the time, and kind of segregating clients down into what can you claim, what can't you claim, and then getting in touch. I think as the weeks have progressed, I think people are getting a bit more clued up, a bit more information out there, and they've been asking the questions and getting the answers they need. So then it moved on to the furlough scheme. So for employees or people that have employees, trying to get the funding as quickly as possible. That caused challenges for ourselves because everyone brought forward their payroll to get the money in sooner, which is fair enough. That's a good thing to do. But we're doing way more payrolls than we normally would. But then they did get their payments pretty quickly. And now we're moving on to the self-employed income support, where if you're self-employed, I think, so Thursday, you can make a claim. So you can check now to see if you're eligible for a claim, make that claim on Thursday. And I think you're supposed to get payment if you are eligible. You get that 6 days later. So it's kind of timeline has progressed. We've had to keep on top of everything that's going on, adjust our advice, try and get in touch with people that can make a claim. But yeah, it's just a lot of uncertainty. I've had lots of clients asking me what they should do in terms of which staff should they furlough, which staff shouldn't. Whether that's my area of expertise, it's difficult to say, but you can kind of do the numbers for them and say, well, what work have you got on? Have you got enough to keep everyone busy? If not, which employees would be most beneficial from a claim point of view? Do the numbers for them and try and help them that way. Whether that's me suggesting accidentally that they get rid of their most productive member of staff, it's something that we need to. I can advise on numbers, but the business owner needs to really make a decision long term. But yeah, it's been interesting, but it's been good from my point of view. Keeping on top of everything, learning what's going on, and helping people. From my point of view, I've really enjoyed the process. I know it's been tough on a lot of people, but I think what's been announced, and I know that a lot of the trades are slowly going back. Some encouraging signs at the minute. I think people are starting to get contracts again, putting them in an awkward position often because sometimes they're being asked to work and they don't feel like they should because they're concerned about it. But unfortunately, some businesses are put in a position where they can't really say no. Some of these customers are big, it's worth a lot of money, and they need to say yes. So it's putting a lot of people in potentially risky situations where they're just not sure what to do. And it's just being there as a sounding board a little bit as well.
There was a big question yesterday in the Boris's questions, wasn't there, where someone asked about the fact that they've been told they've got to go back to work, they don't have school for their children. Like you say, it's those risky situations and balancing what you need, isn't it? In terms of your role, Martin, so from a financial planning situation with your customers, obviously, is there still a demand from customers to look as far into the future as possible? But again, I suppose that's hard to do when there's not really any clarity on where we're going to be in 3 or 4 weeks, let alone in the next year.
Yeah, I mean, I would encourage anyone to do a forecast. It is difficult to do that at the moment because you don't really know what's going to happen to your income. You don't know what's going to happen to your sales. So you might say, well, based on history, this is what my forecast will look like, but you don't know if you're going to drop a few clients in the next few days. But there are certain steps anyone can do initially. I know when you do some kind of health plan, like going to see a personal trainer, they will always say you need to bring awareness to what you're eating. Similarly, everyone needs to bring awareness to what they're spending their money on. So if they haven't already kind of got a system where they're seeing exactly what they're spending on a month-by-month basis, and they need to do that first, and then you can kind of assess what you're spending money on that you perhaps don't need to be. What subscriptions you got in place. I mean, from a personal point of view, I don't know about you guys, but my entertainment subscriptions, I think I'm now subscribing to Netflix, Disney Plus, Now TV, Virgin. It's just gone crazy. So it's just making a list of those, wiping out what you don't really need, just to get yourself as financially kind of in a best position moving forward. So you're really stripping out the rubbish. And then once you've done that, you've got your kind of your starting point to project forward. It makes it a lot more easy and also encouraging because then you can kind of see your actual cash potentially going up rather than either staying the same or going down because you've got too many costs. And then you kind of make some assessments on reasonable assessments on what clients you think you might lose potentially. Business owners will know which ones they're going to keep and which ones they might lose, and then project forward 3 months. A little tip I've found recently is that there's if you're using cloud-based software for your accounts, so like Xero, for example, there's another app out there called Fluidly, and for the basic package, it's free. Doesn't cost anything, but that's like cash flow forecasting software and integrates into Xero and then automatically projects through. So as long as your Xero data is tidy and fairly accurate on a month-by-month basis, it will kind of project for the next 3 months. It is, I think the free version is limited to 3 months. If you want to go longer, you pay for it. But for a free app, I would encourage anyone, if you're on Xero or something like that, just to have a little play with it and see what it does, because it's always good to have some idea of when you might run out of money.
Yeah.
If you know when you might run out of money, you can try and do things, or you might think, oh, I can't, that's I need to get a part-time job. But perhaps you wouldn't have known to do that for, just for a week or so. Yeah. Perhaps you know to do that if you hadn't done the exercise. So yeah, a few little things in there that people should be doing. Bring awareness to what you're spending, cut out what you don't need to be, and then try and project through. That would help just the decision-making process on what you and your family should be doing in these times.
One other thing to ask as well, and this is kind of from a personal intrigue perspective, but certainly in terms of our customer base, it's affected most. But there are those unique couple of businesses that seem to just be business as usual on the front end, and nothing's really changed. So from a finance perspective, have you got any customers that this hasn't really impacted in any negative manner and are still pressing forward, or is it hit everyone to an extent?
It's hit most. There are a couple. There's someone I've recently taken on. There was in ambulance hire. So he's doing really well. Yeah. But most have had to really adjust, whether they've just had to shut up shop for a few months because they might have a shop and can't get people in, or they run events, or they've been in like the construction. It's affected pretty much everyone. I mean, for Kilby Fox personally, we're still busy. For us, it's been a bit more of a cash flow with people holding on to their money, being a bit more careful with what they're spending. But we're still doing the work. We're still producing invoices. It's just from a cash flow perspective, we need to consider that. But no, there's not many that have had like a brilliant March and April. It has in some way affected everyone. But there are definitely winners in this situation. There's always winners and losers, mostly losers in this situation, but there are definitely winners. And I think those guys will come out. And they've just got to be careful, don't they? In this situation, you've got to be careful you're not seen as profiteering. I think the term is, don't profiteer from other people's misfortune. But there are definitely people in a good situation right now.
And I suppose even if you're a winning business at the moment that's seeing masses of growth within revenue, you've got to be careful not to plan on that growth continuing and spend accordingly, have you? You've got to anticipate that it could do that when normality returns. I suppose it's there. Yeah. So even if it's a positive effect, you've got to be cautious on how it impacts your business long term. It leads us quite nicely to Matt. So in terms of, you mentioned cash flow there, Martin. So Matt, you mentioned to us on my post about looking at cash flow when we move away from coronavirus, and that's something your business offers solutions in. So what's been your stance on managing customers and helping them prepare for once COVID-19 has passed?
Well, we've seen a sort of a change where many lenders have sort of put a brakes and a pause on what's going on to evaluate, how this current scenario is going to affect the property prices, be it residential or commercial. So there's been a bit of a pause and a review. A number of lenders, because they're all on the COVID business interruption loan scheme, have then sort of stopped everyday normal lending to concentrate on the sheer volume of applications, and that's been part of the problem. We've seen people waiting days, weeks just to get the applications through and then have them declined. So we've changed that. We've started working with our businesses to help them generate a detailed plan going into their lender, because we found that with a sort of stick your finger in the air and say, I think I need, a lot of the banks and lenders are stripping through those and saying, well, you don't qualify. Now we've found by doing a detailed cash flow, that's working with accountants, Martin, and even doing it ourselves, that a 12-month forecast, and we've been sort of cautious to say you may be going to get 3 months or 4 months of no turnover, then a slow scaled uplift. We're generating a detailed and quality plan that at least then the lender accepts it, and we found decline decisions have been overturned. We've obviously now got the business, the bounce back loan scheme, and that's very, very quick for people, but it's only 50,000. Our concern is we're still sort of focusing on supporting people through that process of getting there, as we sort of an acronym, Sybil's loans. But we're starting to get people to now think about, when you come out of this, you're not going to instantly go to 100% of your previous turnover.
Yeah,
all your staff have got to come back. You're going to have to fund those staff, but not necessarily have the income to fund the staff. So there's going to be a negative jaw for finances. So using, as Martin says, I've not used Fluidly, but it sounds a great sort of app to use. It at least getting people to project beyond and see how much short will you really be, because there are lenders that once you're, when they can see there is an income coming in and understand the profitability, the cash flow sources of it, invoice discounting, unsecured facilities outside of the civils loan schemes and the bounce back, asset finance. There's all sorts of ways of generating cash flow to help you get through that initial up and running period. I think most of us agree that whilst economically this is affecting everybody, it's not like our previous recessions where there were massive problems elsewhere that meant we all stopped having trade. Everyone's still got money because for the vast majority they're still being paid. We just can't spend it in the normal way. Hence, I think, as Martin said, there are some winners, online retailers, some shops, and they're losers for those that have been in recently DIY stores and things like that. They can't open. So it's very much about, we're now trying to get people to think, probably we're looking September, October, November, those 3 months. Difficult to work out. It's difficult to say when will it be. And we were talking July they're going to open up more for the hospitality sector. So if we said August, you're then talking invoicing out, wages coming back in. The furlough scheme is going to reduce to 60% shortly. So it's these sort of things that businesses really need to sit and have, get in contact with Martin, people like me, to have a chat, talk about it. So that's where we're at the minute.
So with and again, I do apologise for my limited understanding of kind of all of the areas of your business, but one of the things I notice in there is the asset finance. So helping people find financial solutions to implement new things within their business. Now, in terms of inquiries there, are you seeing more traffic coming that way from businesses that still want to invest in their business in the future but want to spread that risk, or is that something where, as you've highlighted at the minute, that the focus has purely been on short-term cash flow, or are there still people out there looking at investing long-term and in their business?
There are still a few, but I think very much it's about the long-term investment is maintaining business and getting it through this period, and the potential change that we're going to see about how our work, a normal working environment will then behave. You may not have loads of desks with people sat next to each other. If I look at your office, for example, you're perhaps going to look at different ways of setting out how an office layout plans, and that may be something that sticks for a long time afterwards. We're not seeing lots of people looking to buy assets, but certainly using their existing owned assets to generate an income that allows them to get through the initial shortfall. So that's where you're more seeing assets used. But then invoices, once they're generated and using those through invoice discounting, is another sort of, that'll be something I think will pick up more and more as we start to exit the lockdown.
Do you think all of this will put more of an impetus on that OPEX model when it comes to procurement, or will people still want to spend money? Do you anticipate you're going to get more inquiries of that asset finance nature once this is done?
You could see quite a few, to be fair. But for different reasons, I think it could still be on the refinance side of things. I think cash flow funding through using invoices will be a big growth area for where lots of people want to go to the bank and get what they see as a traditional overdraft. That won't be possible in most cases without some form of security. Why not use your invoices rather than your property, your premises, or if you haven't got security, how then do you get supporting finance? So that's where I think we'll get busy as we start to look. With a market-wide access, we can go to all the high street banks. I can go to challenger banks and challenger lenders. We can at least provide a range of solutions. But I look at a deal I'm looking at the minute, I've talked to sort of 30 different developer funders to find probably 4 or 5 that with the current environment will do it. So you have to do a lot. Having wide access will give benefit to clients.
Brilliant, fantastic. And moving away from the business side of things a bit for a moment. So Conor, you've helped me a little bit stop being so, excuse my French, but crap with money, which has been useful in terms of the challenges you've seen from your private clients. And apologies, my phone's going off quite loudly, and that's going to become a pain for you all. Did you all hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Cracking. That's just what we like to hear. I need to close that down. Where was I? Conor, I was saying you helped me out with my money side of things, and with your private clients, what kind of challenges and concerns have you seen coming through? And, you know, I think it was Martin that touched on it earlier, but, you know, it's a concerning time for people mentally and managing money. What have you seen? What challenges have you come across?
Yeah, I think certainly from a private client point of view, things like new inquiries have dropped massively over the last few months. Obviously, people are nervous about tomorrow, let alone 10 years time. I think those clients that I've already got, generally that they've been okay. One of the things I always insist on is that we keep 3 to 6 months worth of expenses as an emergency pot. So therefore, things such as the stock market falls we've seen, it's not a concern because we've planned that we don't need to touch that money for the next, 10, 20, 30 years, depending on how old they are, that we can afford to see these temporary declines that we're seeing at the moment. I use the term temporary decline. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know how temporary the decline will be, but history has always shown us that things will improve, and we shouldn't underestimate human ingenuity to find opportunities in downs like we've got at the moment. But I think those people have got that 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. Yes, markets have dropped, and therefore I've had a number of customers either show concern or actually show some interest in trying to get in, thinking prices are down, is now a good time to invest. And sometimes we need to temper that as well. So it's both sides of the coin really. But generally, it's just for me revisiting what we talked about initially in terms of what their objectives are, that they're still on course for it. I use a lot of cash flow planning and modeling software, which I like to show that actually even with markets dropping like they have, are we still on track to achieve, for example, the retirement you want to? Yes, we are. So therefore we don't need to make any rash decisions now, and it's trying to bring the logic back into what can be an emotional time, and that's not always easy, but it is kind of trying to be that voice of reason. And Martin used the analogy earlier about like a personal trainer. It's similar. I'm not there shouting, more, but it's kind of actually, we've got the course. Let's the voice of reason to just stay on that course, and what we're doing is working. One thing I have noticed though, those clients that I've got who are business owners, a number of them have either reduced what they're paying into, say, their pension, or maybe they've stopped it completely for the time being because they are worried about the short-term cash flow. And some of us, we've had the conversation, and then they've decided actually no, we'll keep it for the time being and see how long we can get. But there is that balancing act. It's that old adage, profit is vanity. Sorry, turnover is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is king. And at the moment, when people need cash, it's ensuring that they've got a pot to have it on. And yeah, that goes back to what Martin and Matt have already said, really.
So with your financial wellbeing business, so this is kind of a two-pronged question. One, how has coronavirus impacted you launching a new arm to your business, which I'd imagine it wasn't ideal, but you'll have to have adapted to. And two, have you, in launching that business, has there been more of a focus on the mental health side of things and making sure people are feeling secure? Has that really risen in priority in terms of what you're hoping to achieve with that business as well?
Not. So I'll answer the second part first. No, it hasn't changed because it's a completely separate venture. It's got nothing to do with my existing business. Business partner is a mental health trainer. So actually, we've come together with the view of always, if we can help people understand money better, then there's less stress, and the plan is to go into businesses and to do training for their employees, because the theory being if they understand money better, there's less stress, less absenteeism, more productivity, and therefore there's a direct benefit to businesses' bottom line by looking after the mental well-being of their employees through financial awareness. So from that point of view, that hasn't necessarily changed direction, because that was always our goal. I think what has changed is we were about to pilot it with a couple of businesses, and obviously we can't go into businesses at this moment in time. So all the material is written. We were just trying to agree dates when lockdown occurred, and therefore that's been postponed. What it has made us do is probably pivot a little bit.
Yeah.
I always had this view that once we had gone into businesses and trained them, then maybe we'd do some more digital assets afterwards. And now we're thinking as soon as the lockdown is over, in such a way that we can get together in a room, we're going to start doing some short educational videos. You would have seen me do some of these in the past, where I use like a pint of Guinness to explain how tax relief works in a pension.
Yeah.
Things like that, we're hoping will resonate with people, and it's a short two-minute video that we're looking to launch, and then that will hopefully support what we're trying to do to get into businesses and say help. I think it will be a challenge because ultimately our target market were businesses, and they're likely to not want to be spending as much money in the short term, but equally I know there'll be a lot of leaders in businesses who'll be wanting to think about the well-being of their staff and will want to try and find a way to make it work. So yeah, time will tell what that looks like over the coming months.
Brilliant. So I have a question for you all here, and we'll go back around the circle again. But if I could ask for, sorry to put you on the spot with it, but if I could ask for your one top tip to your customers or people that might be watching this video around how to manage themselves through these next few months and beyond, what would that tip be? So Martin, you mentioned around that app, which would probably be good if you could link that in the comments when we post this, around being able to kind of predict cash flow. Would you say that's your main tip, or is there anything else you wanted to share for people at the minute?
No, I mean, I think that's useful. It's useful, but unless your data is decent quality, it's just going to produce crap. So my main tip would be to understand where your money is going. Bring awareness to it. It's all well and good. You might think, oh, well, I spend about this on takeaways. I spend about this on this, that, and the other. Go back through your bank statements, credit card statements, whatever, and just write down everything and then categorize it. So categorize it into your entertainment, categorize it into utilities, takeaways, all that kind of stuff. And then just really think about how much you're spending. I recently, I've been having probably a few too many takeaways, and looked at my credit card, so I spent about 100 quid in a week.
Yeah.
It's like, what? But you don't really, you know you're spending it, but when you actually look at the figures and you think, that is mental, it's only then when you can start to think, right, what needs to change? How do I get that down to a reasonable figure? And then set yourself budgets, and then kind of say, right, that's a silly amount of money. Let's budget ourselves 25 quid a week on that, or 50 quid a month on that. So yeah, my top tip would be to bring awareness to what you're spending on, and then set yourself a budget and write it all down. Update it every week. Go through your bank statements. What have you spent in relation to how much you said you were going to spend, and potentially adjust your budget or give yourself a bit of a telling off for being greedy. But yeah, that's what I'd do.
I suppose we're in a time as well where if we want to look at the positives, we do have the time resource available to do those activities and spend a bit of time looking through our statements and build those good habits, don't we, for when we're out of this, to make sure we continue to do that in the right way. I've had 2 takeaways in the last 2 months. I'm allowing myself one a month, so I've been good.
That's good. Well
yes,
done.
I'm very impressed with myself. So Matt, what would be your top tip for anyone watching?
For me, if I look at around this, our round table here, the experience that we've got of supporting businesses would be to say to a business owner, individuals, is come talk to us. Is get a breadth of knowledge of different things, be it cash flow, funding access, wealth planning, and at least then have a plan. Having a team of people around you, I think, that you can rely on and get some good information will help you at least sort of start looking and seeing the wood for the trees and having a plan for yourself. Sometimes it's really difficult when you're stuck in the middle of it to actually see a route out and think sort of coherently. So I would say, reach out to other professionals and talk rather than just sit on your own.
I think that's the benefit of the community that we find ourselves in, with you've got the chamber and then all of the other groups. We have got quite a good community in Northampton where, if I do need help on something, I do have a Connor, or if I ran a business and needed the support, it'd be yourselves. So I completely agree with that, and I think that's talking through any issues you've got at the moment is a far extending topic and something we all need to be doing. But certainly when it comes to this side of things, having people like yourselves to go to and just get that bit of advice is really useful. So I think that's a great tip there, Matt. And Connor, what would be your top tip for people at the minute?
Yeah, well, I'll start by saying I've had no takeaway since lockdown. That's the benefit of living in the sticks. Nobody can. I can't really get any deliveries. I can't go out and get them. So I saved a bit of money, and my waistline is improving as a result as well.
Okay.
My tip would be very similar to Martin's. Nobody likes to be told where they can spend their money, and if you can change that between I'm allowed to.
We're losing you a little bit, Connor. I just thought I'd warn you. We're losing your
less
audio
of
a little bit.
In terms of being able to.
Are you there, Connor? Oh, technical issues. Can you ever chaps? Can you hear me? Are we here?
Come back.
You can't hear.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Right, Connor. Are you good? Are you good? Are you returned?
Hello.
Hello. Yes, we can hear you. It's a bit jittery, but we can hear you.
Here. Can you hear?
Yes. Yeah. Good. We got up to.
As I said, I live in the sticks.
It was similar to Martin.
Okay. So yeah, with regards to budgeting, nobody likes to be told where to spend their money. But if we can change the mindset from ourselves where we can spend it to this is where I want to send it to, that subtle shift in mind change can make a big difference, because now you are controlling where you're directing your money to, as opposed to being told where to put your money to. And if you look at business, I think the rule of thumb is a business should spend 7 to 8% of their turnover on marketing. And the idea of that is you're banking some of your current income to help grow future income for your business. It shouldn't really be any different for ourselves. If we could save, the same amount, 7 to 8% of your salary when it gets paid, then what you find is you build up firstly an emergency pot that if your salary has been reduced to 80%, that actually you've got some savings to fall back on, therefore don't need to worry in the short term. And then off the back of that, once you build that emergency pot, you can then direct it towards future savings and investments, with the idea that you've got potentially a different income stream, even if it's only a small amount, to top up whatever your main income stream is. And there's a book by a guy called Michael Michalowicz called Profit First. An analogy he uses is like your toothpaste tube. At the end of your toothpaste tube, you make that toothpaste last longer. You squeeze out that last little bit, that the last 5% of the tube is going to last much longer than the first 5% of the tube. And in theory, it's the same with our money. If we can put aside, say, 5-10% of our money as soon as we get paid, the first month will probably be painful. The second month, you'll notice it. By month 3, you haven't, and you will spend what you have left. It's a bit like the takeaway analogy. You're much more likely to get takeaway the day after payday than the day before. So if you can direct your money to where you want it to go and towards your future self, it then just starts giving you in the short term a bit of a buffer that you don't need to rely on any income. And then secondly, it then gives you the opportunity to save and build on for your future self, really.
I was definitely, before we had that first chat, I was definitely one of those that lived like a king for the first week after payday, and then lived like a jester for the rest of it. But no, that pay yourself tip was really useful for me in terms of saving, putting money aside at the start of the month and paying myself rather than just waiting until the end of the month to see what money I had to put aside, which was inevitably zero by the time the end of the month came round. That was the best bit of advice I got. So no, appreciate that, chaps, and I think that will hopefully be really useful to some people watching this around how to get in contact with you. And obviously I'll tag all of you all, so if anyone has any questions, they can direct them onto yourselves. As is always standard when I do a round table, I like to open up the table to anyone to ask a question, whether it's to me, to another member of the table, or to everyone, and whether it's coronavirus related or not, just to see if we can support in any way. So I don't know if anyone has any questions they've got for the rest of the table that they wanted to put out there.
I was just going to say to Connor, where's the smart money going at the moment in terms of investments? Where are you? I know it's different for everyone, so you might even be able to answer this question. But where's the smart money going in investments?
Yeah, I'm not going to answer it. Advice is individual, and everybody is different. So to give to try and put your money on the winning horse is foolhardy. But I think the reality is, I don't want to say it's the best time to get into the market because we're 10-15% down, but it's certainly a better time to invest now than it would have been 6 months ago, even 3 months ago. Will markets drop before they pick up? There's a lot of conjecture between economists between how quickly the recovery is going to be, and will we see a second wave? What impact will the winter bring before a vaccine comes in? So there's too much we don't know about the future profitability of businesses. So it's even if I was confident with answering that question and say I wouldn't answer it, I think that's where having a diverse there is not a golden egg, and therefore having different pots of money for different time horizons and different levels of risk to balance themselves off just helps to diversify and not put all your eggs in one basket, to coin that phrase. But one thing I probably would say is for some clients, I'm thinking of one of our mutual clients here when I say this, Martin. I'm trying not to do a lump sum investment in this moment in time, but to drip feed what he would normally put in as one lump sum as a monthly contribution over the year. New tax year, we'd normally put in a lump sum now into his pension, and actually I think we are going to see some more volatility, and therefore there's a theory known as pound cost averaging, and by drip feeding your money into the markets, that volatility will see a better overall average return. So that would probably be the one thing I would say is actually if you can contribute on a regular basis, now would be a good time to look at a long-term investment, assuming everything I said earlier, you've got short-term money to be able to rely on. You're not needing this money over the next few years, but I think an investment should be considered at a 5-year plus horizon.
I'm going to be honest, when you asked that question, Martin, I thought you were asking me. So I got really confused thinking, I don't know the answer to this. I know nothing. No, thank you for that, Conor. I had a quick question for Matt. And Matt, I'm hoping that this isn't going to catch you out or anything, but I've been having a debate with my friends around the property market because I think over the last few years, obviously, you need a lot of capital to get that first step onto the property ladder. So people will have been saving for some time. And I was just about aware of what was going on when the last property crash happened. And obviously there was a long-term hit on the property market. And I've been saying to my friends that I don't believe that will happen because there's been a lot of people that have been banking up that capital for a long time. And once this is done, they'll want to capitalize on potentially slightly lower house prices. So I suppose my question to you is, do you believe there's going to be a significant impact to the property market on this? And are we going to see that big drastic drop that some people are expecting on house prices? Or do you think that's going to be a fairly consistent point throughout anything that's about to come our way?
Yeah, it's a bit like Conor. It is a tough one because it's just a case of trying to predict what we think is going to happen. Let's be honest, we've still got the same pent-up demand, lack of housing stock, and there'll be people where, as you rightly point out, prices they suggest could drop by up to 30%. I don't know whether it'll be that big, but there will be some people who will say, I've got the money, I can move, and I want to do a deal. I think that will be a short window as it returns back where it perhaps once was. All the people that have been furloughed have gone back to work. They've got the income there to do it. So I think you might see a slowdown of the market just because people are trying to get their houses back in order, so to speak.
Yeah.
But then they'll go back into the sort of normality of, right, okay, I've got things to do. I needed to move. I want, or I want to buy my first house. I want to buy investment property. That will still continue. We've still got lenders that are on the buy-to-let market and are quite happy to lend against the buy-to-let market. So, if they're still consistent in that arena now, why would the market slump? I personally don't think that'll happen, but time will tell. And the bounce back out of it, I think, will still be quite quick. You might have a 3-month window to sort of make hay, and then the sun will go away. But we'll see.
I remember my family trying to sell it. We live in Weed and Beck, and we were trying to sell a 3-bed house in Weed and Beck about 10 years ago, I think it was. And this village never has property for sale. It's always quite high in demand. And I remember we had that house on the market for 2 years, and it just didn't flinch. No one even looked at it. And I just can't imagine a world where that would happen with the demand for first-time property. And like you said, the shortage of housing at the moment, I can't envisage that. And like you say, I know it's gambling on uncertainties, but I just can't see there being that long-term lull in people wanting to buy property. But like you say, I'm no expert on that.
You could find there's slowdown in the larger properties, but in your 2-3 beds, where people first-time buyers, and in the current environment, divorcing families, that type of thing, you will see that market will always be fairly buoyant. So, it's just getting them again. So that's where the slowdown will come. But mortgages will get kicking off quite quickly.
No. Well, look, thank you very much for all of your insight on that as well. It's been quite fascinating to hear, and appreciate the tips as well. They'll hopefully come in useful. As mentioned, I'll make sure in this as well. So if anyone's got any questions, they can point them your way, chaps. Was there anything else anyone wanted to add before we close off? Or all managed to get our points across? Are we all happy?
Yeah, I'm good.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Cracking. So thank you very much for joining me, gents. As I always say, if anyone watching this would like to join or has any topics they would like to see, do let us know, and we'll be back next week. Other than that, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time, and see you soon. Take care.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye-bye.